Lena had always known the value of hard work. As an artist, she spent years in a cramped studio, creating vibrant pieces that spoke of emotion and freedom. She had talent, raw, undeniable talent, but the world seemed indifferent. Galleries displayed her work, but sales were sparse, and recognition was fleeting. It wasn't until the day she met Victor Beaumont that everything changed. Victor, a wealthy and influential art collector, appeared at one of her exhibitions. His sharp eyes took in every brushstroke, and by the end of the night, he sought her out. "Your work is remarkable," he said, his voice smooth and authoritative. "But you're not being seen by the right people. I could change that for you." Lena had heard similar promises before, but Victor was different. He had connections, wealth, and most importantly, he seemed to believe in her potential. He offered her a contract, a business partnership that would elevate her career beyond her wildest dreams. He promised to finance her work, secure high-profile exhibitions, and promote her as one of the most promising artists of her generation. She would have creative freedom, he assured her, and the success she'd always dreamed of. The contract was long and filled with legal jargon, but Lena, desperate to escape her struggling artist status, signed it without hesitation. It was her chance at greatness. For a while, things seemed perfect. Victor arranged for her to move into a spacious studio, introduced her to the most powerful figures in the art world, and soon, her paintings were selling for thousands. It felt like she had made it. But beneath the surface of their partnership, something more sinister lurked. Victor's influence began to seep into her work, subtly at first. His suggestions about what would sell better soon turned into demands, and Lena found herself altering her style to suit his taste. The once vibrant and expressive pieces that had defined her career became cold and calculated, driven by Victor's vision rather than her own. Victor's promises, which once seemed like a lifeline, were starting to feel like chains. Lena's art career was skyrocketing. Galleries that once ignored her were now showcasing her works. Collectors were vying to own her paintings, and critics hailed her as a rising star. She should have been ecstatic, but instead she felt hollow. Every success seemed to tighten the grip that Victor had over her. He had become more than just her patron. He was now her puppet master, pulling the strings of her career with an iron fist. Victor was everywhere. He attended her exhibitions, whispered in her ear about what pieces should be in her next collection, and even orchestrated how she should speak to the media. His vision for her art became suffocating, leaving no room for Lena's creativity. "This is what the people want," he would say, dismissing her concerns. "This is how you stay relevant." Lena's art was no longer her own. The bold strokes and raw emotion that had once defined her work were replaced by sterile, commercialized pieces that catered to Victor's whims. She tried to resist, to push back, and reclaim her voice, but Victor always reminded her of what he had done for her. "Without me, you'd be nothing," he'd say coldly, flashing the contract she signed. "You'd still be painting in that tiny apartment, scraping by." That contract, Lena had signed it without a second thought, never imagining the fine print would one day become a weapon against her. It bound her not just to Victor's financial support, but to his creative control as well. Worse, it gave him ownership over everything she created while under his patronage. Lena hadn't realized the extent of what she had given up until Victor began claiming her pieces as his own property. As her sense of autonomy slipped away, Lena's resentment grew. She longed to paint without restriction, but Victor's hold on her was unyielding. Trapped in a world of wealth and success she no longer wanted, Lena faced an impossible decision: continue living under Victor's control, or risk losing everything to regain her freedom. One day, Lena arrived at her studio to find it empty. Every painting, every sketch, every unfinished canvas was gone. Panic surged through her. She called Victor, demanding to know what had happened, only for him to respond calmly. "It's all mine, Lena. The contract you signed gives me ownership of every piece you've created under our agreement." Lena's heart sank. She had known the contract was strict, but she had never imagined Victor would go this far. Her entire body of work, everything she had poured her soul into, had been taken from her. "You can't do this," she protested. "This is my art." "It was your art," Victor corrected, his voice chillingly composed. "But you signed it all over to me, and now it's time for you to pay the price of your fame. You wanted success, Lena. You've got it, but it belongs to me now." His words shattered any illusion she had left. The success she thought she had earned was never truly hers. Victor had controlled it all from the beginning, and now he was stripping her of everything that had ever mattered to her. She had nothing, no work, no gallery, no support. Victor's final move was complete. But something unexpected happened. Rather than fall into despair, Lena had felt a strange sense of relief. Victor's betrayal had freed her in a way that she hadn't anticipated. She no longer had anything to lose. The fame, the success, the wealth, it was all gone. But so was Victor's control over her. She was free, and for the first time in years, she could create for herself. Lena realized that she would rather have nothing than live under Victor's thumb. In the silence of her empty studio, she made a vow. She would start over with nothing but her hands, her heart, and her passion. She would reclaim her identity, not just as an artist, but as a person. With nothing but a blank canvas before her, Lena set to work. She no longer had access to the luxurious supplies Victor had provided, but that didn't matter. She painted with whatever she could find: charcoal, ink, even dirt. Her pieces became more abstract, raw, and emotional than ever before. They were filled with a new kind of energy, born not from fame or wealth, but from a deep need to express her truth. Her new works were unlike anything she had ever created before. They were unpolished, chaotic, and unapologetically personal. Lena's art began to reflect the anger, pain, and liberation she had experienced in the wake of Victor's betrayal. She painted late into the night, losing herself in the process. Each brushstroke was an act of defiance, a declaration that her art could not be owned or controlled by anyone but herself. At first, her work went unnoticed. Without Victor's connections, she was once again on the fringes of the art world. But slowly, whispers of her new pieces began to spread. People were drawn to the raw emotion and honesty in her work. It was clear that Lena had undergone a transformation, and her art reflected that in every stroke. A small, independent gallery took notice and offered her an exhibition. This time, there was no fancy parties or influential critics. It was a humble space, but it was hers. Lena's exhibition quickly gained traction, and soon the art world was buzzing with excitement over her rebirth. Her new works were praised as bold, daring, and revolutionary. Despite losing everything, Lena had found something far more valuable: her voice, and now the world was listening. Lena's new exhibition was a massive success. Critics who had once dismissed her as a product of Victor's influence now hailed her as a visionary. Her abstract, powerful pieces resonated with people in a way her earlier work never had. The art world was captivated by her transformation, and soon, Lena found herself at the center of attention, this time entirely on her own terms. Victor, who had once controlled every aspect of her career, watched from the sidelines as Lena's star rose higher than ever before. He had taken everything from her, but in doing so, he had unwittingly given her the freedom to become the artist she was always meant to be. The art world that had once belonged to him now had its eyes on her. Lena's rise was more than just a career comeback. It was a form of poetic justice. She had reinvented herself not only as an artist, but as a symbol of resilience and self-reliance. The people who once revered Victor for his taste and influence now saw him for what he was: a manipulator who had tried to claim ownership over someone else's genius. At the height of her newfound fame, Lena released a final piece that would cement her legacy: a large, abstract installation that depicted the chains of manipulation breaking free. It was a powerful statement, not just about her journey, but about the universal struggle for independence and artistic freedom. Victor, once a towering figure in the art world, was left with nothing but the remnants of a career built on exploiting others. Lena, on the other hand, had everything: her art, her integrity, and the respect of the world. She had not only survived, but thrived. In the end, Lena's revenge was not in destroying Victor, but in proving that she never needed him at all.